As the COVID pandemic continues, the economy struggles and job losses and COVID restrictions take their toll on families and individuals. It places greater pressure on local charitable groups. Joining me to discuss this is Major Don Bladen with the Lethbridge Salvation Army. He's joining me via Skype from right here in Lethbridge. Welcome, Major Don.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
So, Major Don, COVID hasn't only impacted businesses, but it's changed things for outreach groups like yours as well. So, how has this impacted the organization's finances? I know that the holidays are over, for example, but were you still able to meet the needs of our community over Christmas, like with the kettle campaign or with the Christmas Hope campaign, for example? Or was there a significant shortfall?
Yes, I think we had an exceptionally good Christmas, actually. We didn't surpass any goals by any stretch, but we did meet with all of the needs that came to us. And so, with respect to our Christmas Carol campaign, of course, that's typically a 5 or 6 week campaign. We hope collectively, with respect to our mail out, as well as those that stand in the stores and collect money from people, passerbys. We're looking for about 250,000 total for the year. We got around 200, maybe slightly over 200. So we fell a little bit short in that regard. Um, yeah, you just have to deal with these things as they come, and charities, not-for-profits, we're no exception to this COVID pandemic, and it's been a struggle for a lot of us. But we have an amazing community, we have amazing leadership, we have a amazing philanthropy, and I can't thank the community enough for helping us to help others.
Now, I know recently they enabled electronic donations with the Christmas Kettle campaign. Did you think that that helped at all a little bit?
To be honest, it wasn't terribly well received. It was spoken of quite highly, and I think people really liked the idea. But no, we didn't really glean a whole lot of donation from that platform. I think we'll continue to use it because I do think it is the way of the future. But it just might take us a while to get to where we need to be.
Right. I think it'll probably one of those things that'll catch on in the future more.
Hope so.
Yeah. And then what about Christmas Hope campaign? What was your involvement in that? It was a collaborative effort, right?
Yes, that's been going on for a few years, and so we start off with kicking off at City Hall, and the mayor lights the Christmas tree, and we sort of collectively talk about what our goals and ambitions are for the year. The Salvation Army is a part of this endeavor as it relates to the distribution of toys. And so, we let the food banks handle the food element, and we collaborate on the toy element. And we do our very best to be as generous as what we possibly can be. And this year was no exception. We had to change our delivery model up a little bit because of COVID, but we've got a lot of really good feedback, and there were a lot of happy people. And I think all things considered, although we couldn't have a lot of personal contact with people, which is what we prefer, we nonetheless had a lot of success. So we'll see what the future holds in that regard. I can't see us being in any way getting used to being so distant from people in our ministry delivery. I really think it needs to get back to some semblance of warm embrace and so forth. But by and large, it went well.
That's great to hear. Now, the Salvation Army Thrift store has closed, and I'm guessing this was a source of ministry finances as well. So, what happened there? Is the closure due to COVID, and is this a permanent closure, or will it possibly reopen once things get back to some kind of normal?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. When I first came into the community about 2.5 years ago, I started doing a lot of assessment as to how well things were working. And, the thrift store, it became evident to me, needed a lot of attention and needed a lot of work. And, we have had great leadership and a great run for a lot of years in this community. But we got to a point where we were spending a lot more than what we were able to bring in. And the unfortunate part about dealing with those types of situations is, you have to start scaling back. You have to start retooling. Um, yeah, we were in the process of doing that and doing that quite well without impacting a lot of our employees. But then COVID hit, and we essentially had a building that we were paying, a lot of rent, lease costs on, a lot of maintenance costs on, and it just wasn't doable. And so we had to make the tough decision to close. But with that being said, the closure was temporary and is temporary. And we are in the process now of wanting to amalgamate or put under one roof our community and family services work. In other words, our client intake and all that we do to help the needy and the working poor in our community into the same building as what our thrift store would typically function out of. So by bringing those two things together, we can really scale down to a degree where it becomes a lot more cost effective. And yet at the same time, we can really start to focus on what it means to bring a thrift store ministry as a community and family services expression together with the actual family services area. And so by bringing them together, I think we can be a lot more effective in service delivery. We can be a lot more cost effective. We can be a lot more ethical in terms of the donations that are given and how we use them and distribute them. And yeah, I think there's some great days ahead of us. We anticipate opening late summer, early fall. Right now, unfortunately, we're in the middle of a lot of sort of construction conversation about how this whole thing needs to look. The money is there. We just simply need to make sure we use it in a very precise, exact way.
Yeah, well, we look forward to having that open again and open better, right? With, yeah, with more purpose there, absolutely. Now, the Salvation Army serves people in need, of course, including those who are homeless and those who are struggling with addictions. So what kinds of challenges are these people dealing with because of COVID and the associated restrictions?
Yeah, it's difficult for me from a Salvation Army platform in Lethbridge to really speak to that because we don't run an addictions facility here, and we don't deal day to day with the ground level work of addictions rehabilitation in this community. We're a supporting partner for those who do, and so I can't really speak to to the impact from a personal perspective. But I'm like you, right? I watch the news, I follow social media, I talk to people in that particular area of service, and yeah, it's a tough situation. It really is. The addictions issue has always been a major issue, and I think to a degree, although I don't have statistics to sort of go down that road, I do think that it's continuing to be a really difficult problem for people to address.
Absolutely. We hear stories that some homeless people have been avoiding shelters for fear of catching COVID, which can potentially put them in more dangerous situations.
Yes, I don't have any semblance of medical expertise, but I can just imagine how difficult it really is to, to deal with that kind of a situation in a facility where it's inevitable. There's going to be people coming into close proximity with others. It's unavoidable. So I respect the health authorities. I respect those who are dealing in this field of interest, and yeah, to deal with these issues have to be monumental. And so I will support in any way I possibly can, and we will do as much as what we possibly can within our scope of ministry.
Right. And I don't know if your scope of ministry like covers over it, but there are folks that don't have roofs over their heads and they still have those financial struggles. And some people have lost jobs or are working fewer hours these days. So what are the needs and how are you able to offer assistance to them, or are you able to?
Yeah, we have opened up our community and family services building, or at least a portion of it, until construction begins, to provide for a drop-in type scenario where we have a number of different sort of household articles, food items, even some clothing items for people to sort of take a look at. And if there's a need in any of those areas, of course, we try to meet that need. We're serving a lot of new arrivals to Canada, a lot of immigrant families and those people that are trying to establish. And I'm finding that our numbers are increasing by the week, actually. So each and every day when I talk to the lady who does the intake for us, she says, "Oh yeah, we've had 22 or 24 or 25 or 26 people today, and the vast majority of them again are newcomers to Canada." So we see there's a real opportunity and a real niche there to be able to sort of enter in and help as much as what's possible. And again, going back to that merging of our thrift store community and family services, we're entering into an initiative called Pathway of Hope. And that Pathway of Hope initiative is really meant to begin to work very specifically and acutely with people who have very, unique needs that we could not only give them a handout, but essentially a hand up. And that's really the goal of our ministry, is to walk alongside of people and to really get to know them, to get to understand what their needs are, and to really see them move out of whatever semblance or whatever level of poverty they might find themselves in. And maybe even not even using the word poverty, whatever area of need they may have, just helping them to address it in productive ways. And so, yeah, we have a lot of great plans, and we have to sort of put those things together. We have to hire a person that is really capable and equipped in some of these areas of giftedness to help us do that. And so we have a lot of plans for the next few months.
That's excellent. And as you're getting to know these people, are you noticing a higher degree of levels of depression and domestic violence due to the COVID restrictions?
I have not really experienced that personally myself, although I do read the headlines, and I do again speak to people who are, invested in those areas of interest. And yeah, there seems to be a lot of stress out there. There seems to be a lot of juggling going on between, different households and their needs, and of course, not having children in school or in school and then out of school, and all of the issues that go with, trying to work, trying to earn an income, trying to pay the bills, trying to look after your children while doing all of that. I could just imagine that is causing a lot of stress. And again, we're here to help as much as what we possibly can. So our goal is to alleviate some of those stresses in so much as it's possible. And before COVID hit, we had a Tuesday evening program in our church where we had upwards of 45 at risk or vulnerable youth in our building. We would serve them a meal and provide them sort of a devotional or a learning opportunity, and to be able to interact with some of our leaders and some of our elders. And it really turned out quite well. And COVID hit, and all of that sort of practical ministry disappeared. So we thought to ourselves, we have to continue to try to meet. And so what we've done is we've delivered meals to their homes. We've delivered devotions to their homes on a couple of occasions, and we plan to do that again real soon. And so, yeah, there's this ongoing sort of adjustment to continue to care for the needs of these incredibly vulnerable people. And in our case, what was already established really enables us to do that and to do it well. We're also doing another program here shortly, and it's going to be a one-day virtual event that my wife is leading with a team of really great leaders, and it's called Brave, and that's a full day where vulnerable young girls, from 12 to 18 to 20 years old, are going to come together virtually, and we're going to deliver some gifts or some swag bags, as my wife would call them, to their home, and invite these girls to be a part of this Brave event where they can not only get to know each other a little better, but be given some tools to help them understand their worth and their value, and some of the risks that are present for them in today's world. And so, yeah, I can't say enough about how difficult it is to deliver ministry, but yet how ingenious we are when we get together and we put our minds and our resources together to help people in need. And so we continue to do that day to day, and we're just always looking for new initiatives and new ways to do that well.
Ugh, that's absolutely wonderful to hear. Now, before we wrap up here, I have to, of course, address this. Major Don, you're no stranger to tough times yourself. So right in the middle of this pandemic, this past summer, your house burnt down, and that must have been devastating. How did you cope with that, and what's happening now?
Yeah, as you sort of introduced this topic, I felt my body sort of adjust to the stress that I'm feeling inside. And so I don't really know how to put it all together in exact words to really get it across to people, how we're doing. But let me just focus maybe on the good. God has provided for us in some incredible ways. There are people who have stepped up and have come alongside in very tangible ways, both from the Christian community, the non-Christian community, the faith community at large, and people all the way down in the United States have reached out to us and said, "Hey, we know somebody who knows you, and we've heard what's happening." Yeah, so I can't say enough about how community responds to true need, and I think people are pretty discerning in that regard. They know when people are going through tough times. Now, I don't just hand this over to human ingenuity. I give the glory to God, because God has His hand in all of this. I will never leave you or forsake you, He says, right? And so that has to be true in both the good and the bad times. And so when something as devastating as this house fire happens to anybody, let alone us, um, my first go-to is God, is the Lord. Lord, what are you trying to show me in this? And I've been doing a lot of reading on folk who have gone before me in the Christian faith who have endured some incredibly difficult times, only to look back on their story and say, it's absolutely incredible how God has used these things to to bring us closer to Him. And so, just when we think, right, that He's far away or distant or not even remotely close, He sort of taps us on the shoulder and says, "I've been here all along." So. Um, I'm just so incredibly thankful without using a lot of scripture, without getting all preachy or pastoral. All I can say is God's been amazing. God's people have been amazing. Everybody we're working with in this regard, even though there's an incredible amount of stress and anxiety and emotion involved, yeah, I still wake up each morning with a smile on my face because I have my life. I have my wife and I have my beautiful dog who just happened to be with us in the office the day of the fire. So I don't think there's anybody on planet Earth who can convince me there is no God.
That's
Not true.
amazing. So many people in that situation might even blame him and say, like, God, why did you do this? But it's interesting to see your reaction to that. And I just absolutely love that. And thanks so much for all that you do, Major Don. Don Bladen is the major for the Lethbridge Salvation Army. And we're so happy that you were able to join us today.
Thank you so much for giving me the time.